Okay, apparently I misremembered when I was looking through the previous clip. I thought I would just immediately go to start cheating to get through the Ing King, since I really don't have that kind of patience at this point of the commentary. But apparently, during gameplay, I did have that patience, because I did try to go at him honestly several more times. And one of those times, I legitimately did make more progress than what we saw in the previous clip, before I finally started cheating. Please excuse me while I fast forward to around the point when we empty his health bar here. That's right, this fight isn't going to be over when we empty his health bar. He's one of those annoying bosses that has more than one health bar and just makes things annoying for you. This would feel more exciting if this boss felt like he'd been built up in some way or another. Unfortunately, the storytelling has done the Ing as a whole no favors whatsoever. They have nothing going for them, aside from interesting looks, and in order to deal with gimmicks from one boss to the next. They haven't felt like an active force pushing for legitimate objectives since we took the energy collector just before we met Umos. And it's not like the lore told us much about them specifically as we scanned an obscene number of things on the way to this point in the game. At best, we just saw something about their training grounds, which they occasionally use to execute Luminor. And when the faction as a whole has gotten no respect, do you really think the nameless leader of said faction, whom we only just met, is going to feel especially menacing to someone who hunts down especially dangerous monsters for a living? It's also said that Dark Samus has more personality than the leader of the entire faction we've been fighting against. She is not the primary villain. She should not have that kind of advantage over him. Though to be fair, before Ravenbeak and Metroid Dread, the franchise didn't really give the various characters and monsters all that much in terms of personality. Not even Dark Samus, who I'm definitely looking forward to once we beat this bastard. It's just that when you make a sequel to a solid game like Metroid Prime on a console, one of the expectations is that things will be improved when the sequel comes out. Most of the improvements that this game tried to do were boss designs, and good god, they most definitely failed on that front, based on how the Boost and Spider-Ball Guardians were received by the fan base as a whole, not just by me. This game also does not measure up based on the level design, since 3 of the 4 areas before we got to the Sky Temple didn't really feel different enough from one another. Then the last one kind of belonged in an entirely different game, and Dark Aether was just a palette swap for sections of the same areas. Add in the odd lack of environmental storytelling after a while, the questionable way the Dark version of the world was handled as a whole, the absurd padding with the sheer number of keys dumped down, and well, it's easy to see why plenty of people don't think too much about this entry in the Metroid Prime trilogy. Anyway, we're about at the point where I died last time, and I still haven't resorted to turning on any cheat codes on the emulator. As a side note, why do I enjoy the music for this fight when it's sped up more than when it was playing normally? Okay, to no great surprise, apparently a charged light beam shot does a lot more damage than an ordinary shot. Great, no safe spot to scan the bastard from. Excuse me for being especially annoyed by that crap. So we can Spider Ball onto the boss. I'm sorry, but the Spider Ball boss did too good a job of making me feel nothing other than absolute annoyance when we deal with puzzle-oriented bosses in this game. Though I suppose I could use this as a good opportunity to heal or something. After all, usually when a boss has multiple phases, it comes in threes, and I severely doubt that the Ing King is gonna go down in just 2 phases, since the game so wants this guy to come across as epic, despite the lack of any real build-up to him in particular, or even for his entire faction. You mean to tell me the bloody gas is rising? I'm sorry, didn't they do enough to make this annoying to have to go through with those tentacles popping up to slap us into the frickin' gas? Very long-reaching tentacles at that, when the camera does not really feel like it's on our side. But then, that seems to be a bit of a running theme in this fight, as far as I can tell. Part of what makes this multi-form massive boss dangerous is the fact that our camera was meant to deal with smaller foes, regardless of if it's third person or first person. This is not the case of the game being broken. It's a case of the game designers taking advantage of the limitations of their own combat design. And I am not a fan of that kind of purposeful frustration. Especially not when I'm of a mindset where I very much want this fight to be over and done with, so I can move on to the fight I'm actually looking forward to. This game has lasted more than long enough, in my opinion. An opinion that I've been stating repeatedly, in clip after clip. I'm sorry to anyone who's gotten annoyed with my bitching around here. I hope the rest of my commentary is good enough to make up for that. By the way, did we really need so much gas that we lose visibility? I have more than enough problems this far in, thank you very much. Just how many more of these little vent things on this guy do we have to blow up? And just why doesn't he have a health bar at all in this phase of the fight when he does for the other two? Granted, the longer this phase goes, the better shape we'll probably be in for the one after it, but still, we are 45 clips into this game. I'm pretty sure I deserve to be annoyed at how long things are taking here. Great. I can't even see any remaining vents to destroy on this guy. That must mean it's on the bottom part. And I make that realization just as the smoke starts to rise again. Wonderful. Look, you're down to just one vent. Just switch to your next form already. You're not getting rid of us this way, and I'm sure Form 3 will be more visually interesting at the very least. At the very least, seeing a more mobile foe would be more fun to see, even if I'm more obligated than interested in this battle as a whole. There we go. Next phase. Okay, it looks like an oversized version of many of the Ing we've killed over the course of the game, which kind of makes up for the fact that the previous two forms came out of nowhere, so we had no prep time for them. An oversized version with some kind of furnace in its mouth, that's certainly odd. And of course, a fully charged light beam attack did nothing to this form's health bar, because apparently that would have been too easy. Wait, phase on mutation? Why is this the first time we're hearing about the King of the Ing being in any way affected by the phazon in his personal chambers? Why didn't we see anything like that about the previous two forms? Right, going to just start fast forwarding again right now. Okay, so the flashes on this guy switched from yellow to red, and I'm not quite sure why just yet. And apparently I finally gave in and turned on the cheats, and for understandable reasons, because I am not sure why some of my hits are actually landing in his mouth, and some are just glancing on, because, the game's aiming system is kind of crap for this style of fight. I'm sorry for those of you who wanted to see me smash against this wall over and over again until I managed to get through it entirely. As I said before, I am not the Dark Souls type who considers absolute frustration to be part of the fun. When I was a kid back in the 90s, I might have just muscled through it out of stubborn pride, but it wouldn't have been fun. I'm not too sure how patient I was for this sort of thing back at the time when I was in middle school and high school, which is around when this game was first released. I just know that as an adult now, I do not like dealing with especially frustrating bosses that draw things out and make you have to try them over and over again, just for the sheer sake of being a pain in the ass. The guy is just vomiting out light energy, and we're just turning it into ammo to shoot back at him. And of course, his attacks are coming at such an intensity that without the invincibility cheat, we'd have been killed several times over by now. Good God, this is such a pain in the ass even just to look at, much less go through. Especially since if you get killed on the third form, you have absolutely no choice but to have to fight through the first and second forms again. And, you're probably gonna be at least a little worn down when you get back to the third form. And I'm just talking emotionally, because those two forms are a pain in the ass of a different sort. There's also the fact that you want to be in good shape to take on Dark Samus after this fight. She's not an opponent you can take lightly. Certainly not after the fight we had with her last time, and she had to have gotten stronger in that time. Frustrating or not, I want to fight her. I want to take her on legitimately, since she certainly feels like the kind of foe that deserves to be called the final boss in a game like this. It may be a rematch, but frankly a brawl against her is far more fun to go through than fighting against this thing in 3 different forms, where we have to have the right kind of beam out at the right time to cause damage to his health bar, and otherwise have to just pound on its mouth until it becomes vulnerable. It's made all the more annoying by the fact that the big guy's mouth just keeps blocking our shots to the right section of it, negating some of the damage we mean to do, all because this boss in every stage feels like he's leaning on just how iffy the control scheme is. He may not be the obscene level of bullshit as the Spider Ball Guardian, but he's still no fun for me, especially once you get to the third most critical stage. The first stage was more than enough to deal with, thank you. And while the second was blatantly more of a time to catch your breath, well, at least it's more interesting to look at than the massive ball that kept pouring out poison gas that it can. I feel we should be immune to, just like the toxic atmosphere of Aether at this point. I'm certainly willing to give credit where it's due whenever I can, even when I'm very annoyed. Right, past the halfway mark of this stage, but it still feels like I'm relying more on luck to get the hits in that cause damage than skill. But then I suppose I gave up trying to take him down skillfully the instant I activated the cheat code in the emulator. I supposed to maneuver behind him and try to shoot him in the ass or something? No, there's no other hole back there to get that thing in his mouth that allows us to actually do any damage. Just why did they have to make the target on this guy so finicky to get to when we aren't really going to be able to line up our shots with the way the lock-on system works? Hell, just what kind of hyper-capable people did Nintendo have at the time when they were doing playtesting for this game? Did they even bother to test things out? Or did they go straight from design to release without testing? It's hard to say, especially since this doesn't feel like the most rushed game I have ever seen released on the GameCube. Still feels like it could have used a good deal more care in terms of the lore drops we got in the game. Something to make the ink feel special instead of throwaway, and something to make saving Illuminaut feel like something other than an obligation. Right. Of course, the ammo we need right now is depleted. Well, at least it didn't take long to replenish. That's got to be worth something. Though what we really need is something to make sure we don't have so many wasted shots so this actually can end. It certainly feels like I'm going to put the Dark Samus fight and the ending cutscenes into the next clip instead of this one. I certainly hope nobody minds that it's going to take me just a little bit longer in order to finish this thing. Though part of me wouldn't be surprised if a good deal of people watching this LP just gave up on it before we even got this far, especially with some of the breaks I took midway through. Maybe I just don't have enough faith in myself, considering I'm blatantly cheating to get to the ending, though, and this certainly isn't the first game I've had to do that. It's hard to say that lack of faith in myself is too harsh. But then I've got a lot more clean wins through numerous games than I have cheating moments. Just like I have far more complete LPs than I have incomplete ones. And that finally does it. The Ink King is dead. It certainly took long enough. And it sounds like my controller temporarily decided to give up on me just as the fight ended. Better that happened in the middle of a cutscene than in the middle of the fight, even if I had cheats on at the end. Now, let's grab that energy and find a probably abrupt moment to pause the game so I can turn off the cheat code for our fight against Dark Samus. Again, it's funny that I'm far more interested in fighting against a shadow clone of us that we've already fought twice in this same game than I felt fighting against the leader of the supposed army that was endangering the entire planet. Right, the energy is ours, which of course means that Dark Aether is going to have quite the problem now. Time for the obligatory escape sequence. I'm pretty sure the only game in the series that doesn't have an escape sequence at all is Metroid 2. Absolutely every other game in the franchise has had at least one, though I suppose the first Metroid Prime decided to have it at the start instead of the end for some reason.